Our story begins with a fierce battle between the Emperor of the Sword and an evil moon fairy. Just as the fairy is about to claim victory, Mariel the swordsman appears, slicing the moon fairy in half and saving the Emperor. 6 years later, we find ourselves in the Waryong mansion, where the Emperor's first wife scolds a red-haired boy for not completing his chores. Important visitors are arriving that day, and she is furious that he is not paying attention to her. The boy, frightened by her anger, agrees to clean up and goes to do so. In the meantime, the Emperor and his family are en route to the mansion in a chariot. The Emperor tells his family about his only sworn brother, his uncle Marion, who saved him 6 years ago. Chun, the Emperor's son, is curious about his uncle and asks his father questions. The father tells a story about how Marion had 2 wives, but was particularly fond of the second one, who died 6 years ago. This made Marion very sad, and he retired. The Emperor warns his son not to ask Marion about his second wife. Back in the mansion, one of the employees informs the woman that her husband has finally left his room and she is annoyed. She tells the boy to hide so that he is not seen by the guests. The Emperor's brother and family arrive and are warmly greeted by the woman and her children. Chun is shocked to see that his father's hero is skinny and emaciated. The Emperor's daughter is missing, playing hide and seek. Despite this, the visitors are welcomed, and the story continues. Suddenly, the uncle starts coughing and faints. Miwik is looking for his cousin when he sees him talking to his little sister, who asks him about his nickname and the legends she has read about him. He approaches them and apologizes to his cousin for his sister, Seolju. His cousin laughs and tells him that he is not bothering him. Seolju gets upset with his brother, but he tells him that he should not ask personal questions to someone he just met, that it is rude to do so. He then asks his cousin if he knows where his sister is, because he wants to befriend him. Yeon replies that he would like very much for them to become friends and that he also went out to look for her. While they talk, they all go together to look for the girl. Meanwhile, the punished boy can be seen in front of the girl who went out to hide, and he wonders who she could be. He notices that she is very pretty and details her clothes. He thinks she is one of the important visitors and thinks about the new punishment for not staying away from the visitors. She looks at him while he thinks, and suddenly he decides to run to get away, but she stops him. She realizes that he may be her uncle's son, but she sees him very skinny with wounds on his body, and realizes that he is very scared. She hears him keep saying sorry. The girl approaches and realizes that the boy has not been well cared for and asks him his name. The boy replies Jiaka. The girl repeats his name, hugs him, and tells him that she will protect him. The boy starts to cry badly. After hugging him, she takes him by the hand and asks him to come with her. Together, they enter a hole in a wall. The girl took Jiaka by the hand and led him to the village and fed him. But on the way, they met some warriors. Jiaka was frightened, but his cousin took him by the hand to follow. While that was happening, the Emperor was in his brother's room waiting for him to wake up. When he did, he asked him about his health and felt sorry for what happened. He had not been able to avoid fainting. Looking at his brother, he said, "I told you that the advanced technique of my clan is transmitted through the 9 heavens, right? However, I can no longer see through the 9 heavens mirror." While his brother listened to him, Jeon told him that everything had happened that day when his second wife died, leaving a baby. He did not feel like meeting him because although he knew he was not to blame, he believes that by meeting him, he will hate him for the death of his wife. After listening to his brother, the Emperor tried to comfort him and asked him to rest, that he was not used to seeing him so weak. But Jeon persisted in his request, insisting that he would like to ask for one last favor, for the Emperor to take care of his children. Despite the Emperor's request for him to rest, Jeon continued to plead for his children, knowing that they had been alone without a father for a long time. Outside the Emperor's house, near Jeon's room, the 2 wives of the sworn brothers waited anxiously for news. Eventually, some warriors arrived and found the children in the village, bringing them back home. Although the 2 mothers were relieved to have their children back, they were still distressed. In July of that year, Jiaka's father died and his first mother summoned more than 20 warriors from her own clan to fill the void left by his absence. These warriors became a squadron within the mansion, called the White Tiger Squad. One Monday, at the White Tiger Squad headquarters, Beak approached one of the warriors, visibly annoyed, and asked if he had found any martial arts manuals of her late husband. The warrior responded that he had not, causing Beak to become even more irritated and ordering him to keep all papers related to her husband out of her sight. She also ordered the warrior to lock up Jiaka. Jiaka spent the night in the warehouse, feeling cold and afraid. The next day, he found a hard piece of bread and water left for him through a small door, and complained that he wanted to eat better. While eating, he noticed a bright light and decided to investigate, where he found a dusty mirror. He cleaned it and saw his reflection, smiling and asking if it too had been abandoned. Suddenly, he saw his reflection begin to move and make martial arts moves with a wooden stick. Gyaka recognized these moves as the arts of the 9 heavens, the martial art moves that he had seen his brothers perform. Although he was cold, Gyaka began to train and eventually, with the help of the mirror, he was able to produce warm air and feel better. But he noticed that the mirror wanted him to do more. He looked at it and told it that he didn't want to imitate it, but to survive the cold. Then he turned around to go to another place in the warehouse, but he noticed that the mirror was doing more complicated movements. He told it that he didn't want to do them, but the mirror looked at him with a pout. Gyaka was annoyed by the gesture and asked the mirror if he didn't think that he could soon perform such complicated movements. He started training. There were times when he couldn't keep up with the mirror and saw his reflection mocking him, which made him angry. But he remembered the moves, thought about his mistakes, and kept trying. After a lot of trying, Gyaka got annoyed and decided to cover the mirror with a cloth. But his reflection peeked out from underneath and told the boy that he was going to teach him. Gyaka got excited and uncovered it, but warned the mirror not to trick him or he would cover it up again. A moment later, the boy saw the 900 words that were inside the mirror of the Jishin fairy appear, and though they were complicated, he managed to understand them and realized that the complicated movements that his reflection in the mirror made were nothing more than the celestial inquisitive sword technique. This changed the life of that unfortunate boy who had been locked in the warehouse because his confinement allowed him to concentrate on learning that complicated technique that his father had mastered. Gyaka's confinement lasted 10 years. The young man continues to practice the movements in the mirror and feels satisfied with his achievements. He is finally performing the movements exactly as he sees them in the mirror. Nubik returns after 10 years of absence and his family receives him excitedly. His mother hugs him and tells him that he looks very handsome. Behind Nubik came 2 young men, Chin and his sister Yon. Beek sees them and apologizes for not greeting them earlier and congratulating Chin because his sword art was famous and referred to him, saying there is no one who does not know the name the Blue Cloud Sword. Beek sees Yon and tells her that she is incredibly beautiful. When he finishes greeting the boys, he invites them to come in and rest. But Yon turns away without greeting Beek. Chin calls her attention but she ignores him and Beek tells her that it is of no importance and invites them into the house, but calls one of her warriors and asks him to prevent Yon from going near the storehouse and finding Gyaka. But the warrior tells him that the day before he had gone to check the storehouse and had not found the young man. Hearing this, Beek got really furious at the warrior. A day earlier, Gyaka had performed the movements perfectly in the mirror and his reflection applauded him excitedly. The young man was telling the mirror that he had already learned all the techniques and wanted to know what else he could learn. But his reflection surprised him by pointing upwards. Gyaka looked up at the ceiling of the warehouse and realized there was a hole. He quickly made a ladder out of the boxes in the warehouse and looked up to see the sky again after 10 years and wondered if he could get out. He climbed up and asked the mirror to produce him to see the sky, but the mirror no longer had a reflection. Gyaka stayed on the roof and spent the whole day there. Beek, after learning that Gyaka was gone, runs to the storehouse and after looking for him, realizes that he could have left through the whole hole in the roof and told her warriors not to look for him because he was an ungrateful man who ran away from the clan that fed him. She thought the young man had no chance of living outside the storehouse because he did not know how to make a living. That's it for today, guys. I will be signing off for now. Don't forget to subscribe to Manhwa Station and turn notifications on. This motivates me to work harder for you guys to have great content. Also comment the word sword down to let me know you want another part. See you in the next video.